Quinn Murphy, take 3, like a pro.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Behind the Lens. Today I am joined by Quinn Murphy on the other side of the country. This is actually the first time we're actually speaking face to face, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah, we actually met through Happy Monday, which is a creative agency that we both freelance for from time to time. So they're just doing the Lord's work, just connecting people, connecting creatives.
It's true.
But
It's true.
yeah, no, but you are an amazingly talented videographer, creative, photographer, everything that you do. So I'm just really excited to have you on, and thank you for joining me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate it as well. Happy to be here.
Yeah, cool. So let's just dive right on in, and for the people back at home who may not be familiar with her work, just tell us a little bit about what you do and really how you got started in the creative field.
I'm a content creator. I shoot videos and take photos here and there. I do a lot of social media focused content, so I work with different brands and products to try and create just unique visuals. I shoot events, pretty much all things video. I've just kind of dove in since I was a kid. My first memory of shooting video was probably when I stole my mom's old VHS camera, and I didn't know anything except for the big red button to push it to record. And so I would start shooting my brother or my dog, and I would just start capturing things, and I was really just intrigued by it. I loved it, and that sort of transitioned into shooting my Legos, and I was really into Gumby and Wallace and Gromit growing up, so I would try and make these little stop motions, but they were horribly clunky and not smooth at all. But as a kid, anything that I thought of my imagination, I would channel it through those videos. And from there I would get a little camcorder, and I'd film my little cousins. They would do anything I would say, so they were my little prodigies, and I'd shoot these horribly cringy music videos. And I had a green blanket, and I would make that a green screen, and it would be all fuzzy and noisy. And
how did you even know the concept of a green screen at that age? I feel like I'm just learning about green screens. I mean, that's not true, but how did you at such a young age, how did you learn what a green screen even was, or how to go about doing that?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it comes from YouTube. Growing up, YouTube was just starting, and people were making skits and using VFX. So I'd be how do they make that? And then I would look and see that they use a green screen, or I watch behind the scenes videos. And so I was I want to try that. And so I would take a green screen, and then if I couldn't figure it out, I would YouTube it or Google it, and somehow I would teach myself these little tips and tricks that I still use to this day. But yeah, so it started out with iMovie, and I would edit, and I'd just put in random effects that made no sense, but I was cool, let's throw on this weird flash transition. And yeah, it was just how I was a shy kid, so I just be in my basement making these little claymations and stop motion pieces, and it's pretty much what I'm doing now. So
yeah, no, I mean, obviously we'll obviously see some examples later on just in your work that you're sharing with us today. But yeah, how'd you with stop motion, what how did you learn about stop motion? Even originally, was it just through TV, things of that nature, or and after that follow up, how did you go about just trying it, or what was your process with that?
Yeah, well, as I said, a lot of it comes from Gumby and Wallace and Gromit. I love those claymations, but I think it was Pez on YouTube. Have you ever seen his stuff? It's these really unique, crazy stop motions, of him making spaghetti, but it's made out of Legos and stuff, and it's really cool. And so I think I draw a lot of inspiration from other creators making that sort of stuff, and then I would learn that it's a photo. So I'd take a photo, I'd move I think I made one with Skittles once, and I'd take a photo, move the Skittles, take another photo, and slowly I would figure out how many photos I needed for it to make it look normal. And then I'd figure out, oh, 24 frames per second is that's what that means, this 24 photos within a frame. So it's it's a very long process to do stop motion, but it's super rewarding because there's endless creative possibility with it, which I love.
So bring me back a little bit to your family dynamic. Did you come from a creative background, or what kind of, sparked that initial interest?
Yeah, so I think my creative gene definitely comes from my mom. She is like an artist, and she went to college for arts for being an artist. And then she was in advertising for a bit. She was a creative director before she had me and my brother. So she's always been like my like soundboard for things. And she's always like, made sure I had things that I needed to help me create. And always was just like there supporting me. But yeah, I think the gene definitely comes from there, and then the rest is like learning from YouTube and other creators and things like that.
Yeah, would you say that like the town or city that you grew up in kind of had a pretty thriving creative community where you kind of like were around people who kind of had similar mindsets, and your friends were also like in the arts or just creative, or was it just complete opposite where everyone was just kind of like corporate 9 to 5 type vibe, aside from your mom, obviously?
Yeah, it was complete opposite. I was like the only person I knew for like at all growing up who was doing video. Even in high school, I was like the only one. But among like my friends, I was like the film kid. Like I'd always be like making stuff on iMovie, or like we'd shoot music videos together, and I'd be like piecing them together. But yeah, other than that, around me it's pretty like just normal suburbia. But yeah, but also going to New York City, living close there, that's such a creative, influential place. So
yeah, how far away do you live from the city?
About 40 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Just like a train ride away. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not too bad. So how was your like school dynamic? So like middle school, high school, did you have like any sort of classes where you were taking, or how are you just getting involved, like bringing your art into like your school programming?
So at the time, my middle school / high school didn't have any film classes at all. But I was a part of this film club. And we would make like little videos with like the teachers and like skits and stuff like that. And that was really the only outlet within school that was related to film. But there are a lot of kids that really weren't doing like what I was doing, so I was like, oh, this is like strange, like no one else is really into this. But then the administration there, I guess, started to see the videos, and they were like, we need some videos for our fundraising campaign. And so I would go and shoot like the lacrosse team or like events, and that was the first time I was like making something for someone else, which I was like, oh, this is like weird and cool. I didn't know that I could be doing this with my like little like DSLR camera. But it was fun. I was like hyped to like bring my camera into school every day. I was like, oh my God. So cool.
What was that like initial conversation? Like who, like, do you remember which teacher? Was it like the principal that was like, hey Quinn, like, would you like to come? We know you do videos. Would you like to come shoot something? How did that go?
Yeah, I think it was the principal and this woman who is a head of the like campaign, like the fundraising side of the school. And they were just like, we saw it, like we love your work, like we would love for you to like make the video that's going to play at like the, I guess, like gala or like fundraising event that they would have. And I was like, oh my God, how do I even do that? But then they were like, oh, like maybe you could shoot this and this, and then I'd like would record the principal for like a voiceover that would like play over everything, and then I would like use text. So that was my first time like incorporating all those things to try and like tell a story for like someone else, which was my school at the time.
Yeah, did they give you like a lot of direction, or was it kind of just like you do your thing and then you kind of just went for it?
Yeah, it was more so that I think they just gave me like the things to shoot, and then they probably gave me the voiceover and what they wanted to say, but like visually they pretty much left it up to me, which I was like, okay, this is very cool.
Yeah, that's what. Do you still have that video? I like definitely want to see it if you do.
Yeah, it's buried somewhere in a hard drive.
All right, I won't make you look for it. Don't worry.
I've definitely watched it, and I'm like, this is not good. But at the time, I'm like, yes.
Absolutely, yeah. But yeah, I think that's a good reminder though for anyone that's watching. Just like you have to start somewhere, right? I think there's so many people that like just get in their heads about it and they never even start, and they kind of just psych themselves psych themselves out of it. But yeah, I think just like it's always a good reminder, just like no matter how young you are, middle school, 8 years old, whatever, if you're shooting on a VHS camcorder, like I think it's just really important and key just to start. Now we're in high school, you know, you're doing videos for fun, you're doing videos for your school now and different like sports teams and things of that. So like what is your mindset as far as like your furthering your education or your career? I know like in high school, especially like junior and senior year, they start like pounding you with like SATs or
Oh my God,
ACT and like college and all this stuff. So like what were you thinking? Like were you just like, man, I really don't even want to do that, like I'm just trying to make videos forever? Like what was your mindset going into your future?
Yeah, it was difficult because I really couldn't picture myself doing anything else than video and film. So going to college is very like standard for where I am, and I think for a lot of people. And so film school was like the next step. And I definitely, there's always like a part of me that like wasn't really super into it as much as like as the other kids, but there was also the part of me that wanted to just try it because I know I would like regret it if I didn't try it, and I like gratefully have like an opportunity to go. So I applied to all film schools. I like made all the applications are crazy. Like you had to make videos and fill out all these questions. So
Oh, wait, I'm actually
did all that.
I'm really interested about that because you're actually the first person I think I've met, or especially for one of my episodes, like you're the first person to actually go to film school. Everyone is kind of
Oh,
just,
wow.
yeah. Everyone else is just kind of self-taught, YouTube, university. So what is the application like for film school? Like they actually, obviously, I'm sure you have to submit some sort of portfolio, but do they ask you to create content on top of that aside from like work you've already made?
Yeah, I blacked a lot of it out because it was so stressful. But I definitely remember there was one like that was like make a video about yourself, and I was like, how do I what? And so I like would try. I like pieced together just like a video, and I made like these like animations, and I'm trying to remember what I made, but like I would try and create these things that would just stand out. And then I just remember a lot of like specific questions about like what you love about film and stuff like that. It was definitely like a little more intensive, but it was cool. Like I still like talking about it, so it was interesting to me.
So you're in high school, you're a senior now, filling out all these applications, and yeah. Obviously, film school was a trajectory that you planned to take. So just walk me through that, just like acceptance process and like your time at film school.
I ended up going to Emerson College in Boston, and they have a great film program. So I was excited to go and live in Boston. And for the first time, pretty much ever, I was in classes that were related to film. And that was really exciting to me. Like, I think I had one class on like Disney movies. And I was like writing papers about Disney movies. I was like, this is cool. And we'd like sit and like analyze film. And I think I loved that part because it was just so new. But I think once that like gloss faded away, I was like, this sort of doesn't really align with what I want to be doing fully, which is more like promotional content and social media. And like I grew up on YouTube and always being more attracted to YouTube than like film and narrative. And they're very much like TV sets, movie sets, narrative content. And I just like I've never been super into that. So I was there for a year, and at the end of the year I was like, that combined with like how expensive film school is, I was like, maybe I'll take a break. And so I decided like, let's take a gap year, and if try and figure out like do stuff on my own, and if it doesn't work out, I can always come back. So that was my sort of thought process behind that.
Yeah, how like accepting were your parents of like that gap year? Because I think I feel like in Europe, like all my European friends, like it's so common. Like after high school, they take like a gap year and they just like travel the world and kind of just do whatever. But in America, it's like, wait, what? You're like leaving school? That just like seems like you're going in the opposite direction. So what was that experience like, just with your family or people closest to you?
My friends were like, yeah, that makes sense. Your personality definitely fits to not be in school. My dad was like, hell yeah, go out and do, like, who cares? It's expensive, like, do your thing. And my mom was a little bit like, like maybe not, because I guess she went to, you know, school for art and stuff like that. But but overall they were like very accepting, and I think it's because they knew that I had like the drive and the ability to, you know, create sort of a future for myself and didn't need to fall back on that foundation. And I think if you're like self-motivated enough, I think it's like a good move to do. I was the only one home. I had no friends around here. They were all out at college. And so my first thought was to just meet with anyone I knew in the area and like in New York City who was in this, you know, the advertising filmmaking world. And so I would meet with like these friend who knew a person who like had a production company or like knew someone who worked at a production house. And so I would meet with a few different people. I'd like get coffee and I'd ask them about their story, how they got into it, like any advice they have for me trying to break into this world. And that was super helpful. And ended up making a resume and would just kind of send it out to people, or, you know, let people know like, oh, I'm looking for like an internship. That was my immediate goal, was like to try and get like an internship in a production house. And so my resume got passed around to a few places and ended up at this production house called Moondog in New York City. I think now they're called Carousel, but they were doing stuff for like Victoria's Secret and Pepsi and Neutrogena. And I interviewed with them to be the intern, and they, you know, I got in, and it was like really cool because that was my first time seeing like in action, like production people like working on like really high quality content. And I was there for about 6 months, and I was doing a lot of intern stuff like running packages and expenses, but every so often they'd let me like edit something or like sit in with an editor, and I was like, oh my God. And they'd like show me their timeline, and it'd be like crazy, and I'd be like, how do you do that? And yeah, it was really cool to see that side of things. I was there for 6 months, and then at the end of that 6 months, I was kind of like, would they hire me or go off? Maybe I'll go off like on my own. I was kind of at that like standstill. And so I asked them, and they didn't have any positions open at the time. So I was like, okay, cool. Maybe I'll try and like go out on my own. And then one of my friends from college also dropped out, and she was back home, and we had shot some things before, and she was like, hey, like, what if we like try and like create like our own thing and like freelance and like create a company? And so we did that. We made like a business. We made an LLC, and we had no idea what we were doing at all. We started this like 2-woman group. And our target market was like, we can make really cool content for like super cheap than like these high production houses. That was like our market we were hitting. And that was such a great experience because it taught me the business side of freelance, which I had never really thought about. You kind of think, oh, I'm going to make cool shit, blah, blah, blah. So that was learning about like invoicing and like getting clients and how to email people properly and like, you know, making the LLC and like tracking expenses, like all the stuff that you don't really think about when you're starting to get into freelance. But it taught me like that whole side of things, which was super important.
Yeah, and I definitely want to touch on some key points there, because I think the business side of freelance is like gets glossed over like 9 times out of 10 by anyone that's looking to start, because everyone just like sees Instagram and it's like, oh, this person's starting with so-and-so and making all these super dope videos, but like they forget that it's like, all right, well, like, what are your expenses looking like? How were you going about learning? Like, how did you know what an LLC was? Or like, how did you know how to write a professional email? Or, you know, things like that. Like, we're using QuickBooks, like, you know, to track your expenses. Like, walk me through just your navigating of sort of those oceans.
The LLC was, I had met with like one of my mom's friends who started an LLC, because you have no idea. Like, you can look it up, but it's confusing. And she used like LegalZoom, so that was like an option. And then I think we ended up using an attorney who like helped file. So if you can find like an attorney, they can like help file everything for you properly. Because I was like, I don't want to mess this up. But I know LegalZoom is like a great option too, and it's affordable as well. So we used him, and then you get like a business ID and all this stuff, and then with expenses, I forget how I learned about that, but I ended up using QuickBooks. I was like, I didn't even know expenses were a thing, but it's important to track them, so it helps with like your taxes at the end of the year. So I taught myself QuickBooks, and then like you could use invoicing through QuickBooks, and it's a whole world, but it's important.
Yeah, was this all during like that gap year, or are we like a little bit past that gap year now?
Yeah, that was probably during it, probably a little bit. At that point, I was like, I'm like having so much fun like creating on my own that I'm like, I felt like I didn't need to go back. So
did you have like that sort of like aha moment or moment of revelation where you're just like, yeah, like I'm just not going back to Emerson, like I'm over that?
Yeah, I think I always kind of felt it, like when I left, just because the process of like building yourself up as a freelancer, and as a like at a business at the time was just so like rewarding. It depends on like your personality and who you are, but for me, I was like, I loved like pushing to try and get clients, and it would be such a great feeling to like land a job and like maybe get paid for it, and build yourself up slowly. Like I still just love that. I still just like love the process of it.
Now have this like LLC formed, you're a 2-woman show, you're out here in New York City and on the East Coast just creating content. So like walk me through just like who are some of your like first clients that you're working with, and just what, I guess the growing pains of starting a business look like.
Yeah, so we had no idea what we were doing, but we started with like the immediate circle. So we'd hit up friends and family, be like, hey, like, do you need any videos? Like, do you have an event coming up? Things like that. And we would get a few jobs here and there. A lot of stuff we would do for free. We had no idea how to price ourselves. So like in the very beginning, we were like $30 an hour for the 2 of us, which is like crazy to think about. But we were like, is that too much? Are they not going to hire us? But yeah, and we had just like our like little DSLRs. We had like a few lights, maybe like a little camera. And we would get a lot of nonprofits, a lot of individuals, like film birthday parties, like events, classes, like anything and everything. We would take it for no matter what price. And it was just like a very slow building up process. But it was a lot of fun. Like it was a huge learning curve, and it was cool to like collaborate with each other and build like a website and do this and that. And yeah, it was a cool experience.
Why do you think it was important just to like say yes to everything when you were starting out? Like I do think it's extremely important just to basically say yes to anything, just because it allows you to grow as a person and as a creative. But like, what was sort of your mentality behind it?
I think when you're first starting out, I think your number one thing should be portfolio and like building relationships with people. So for us, it was like anything we shot, even if it was for $0, even if we would lose money doing it, that would go on the portfolio. And that would be something that you can reference to new clients. And, clients are really going to hire you if they can see something that you've done that will relate to them. So that was like the mindset. It was like portfolio. And then, you never know where like an opportunity is going to lead. So you do a job for free that maybe isn't the best, but they reference you to someone else to like a really cool job. And so we found that just like through word of mouth, we would get more and more gigs, and slowly we would like price ourselves better, value ourselves better, and like adjust to those clients.
Yeah. Was there like that first major client where you're like, oh man, like I can't believe we're working with like this person or this company?
We worked with Condé Nast for a bit, and it was Brides Magazine and Self Magazine. We did, I think, like 5 video edits for them. And that also loops back, like we got that through the internship that I had. So like, it's important to like stay connected with people. And that was like referenced through them. And that was the first time we were sent like hard drives. So we were like, oh my God, we got hard drives, and it had like Condé Nast on them. We like were editing stuff with like actors from like Orange is the New Black and things like that. And we were like, our computers were like totally not fast enough. So they would be like overheating. It'd be like heat rising from the computers. We'd be like, we have to get this done. But everyone there was really nice. Like we ended up going to like visit them in the One World Trade Center office that they have up there. So it was really cool and we were like, this is crazy, you know. That was really exciting.
So what does the immediate aftermath of that look like? Did you feel like it's like, oh man, we're working with like this big company, like everything's gonna start flooding in, or like what was sort of that, like how did that look like in the following 6 months to a year?
I mean, that's always like kind of the hope, right? Is that you get like a big job and then you're like, the floodgates are gonna open, people are gonna see this and start reaching out. But I think you learn that it's still like a process. Like you still get a job and then it's quiet and then something else comes. And I think it's just a lot of patience with that. But we just kind of kept our heads down and just kept like working and trying to get jobs and just make the best stuff with each job. And we would get like weddings and things like that. And yeah, it was just like a slow build, and we were able to like sustain ourselves, which I think was like the goal. Like if we can make enough to like pay rent or whatnot, like that was the goal, because then that shows that you're just like doing something right. But then yeah, she ended up moving out to California, and so we did that for about 2 to 3 years. I think we ran the business for. We were really, really happy with it, and then she moved out and the business like naturally fizzled away, and then I was on my own. I was definitely like a little bit lost because I had a portfolio filled with nonprofit and corporate work, and really what I was itching for was like creative content with like brands and products and music videos and artists, which I just hadn't done, but I really like was hoping to start getting into that, and I didn't know anyone who was doing that. I didn't know any like creators or people, so I just started making stuff. I would just be at home and I started shooting like stop motions again, and that was the first time in years where I started to like get creative and kind of go back to like my roots, which was really exciting. And then at the time I discovered Black with No Cream, which is a content creator group founded by Ben Haggerty. He's a legend. And so that was like a huge motivation for me, because for the first time I was like hearing and seeing things from creators that I really like looked up to and were doing things that I had like dreamed of doing. So it was really important to listen and hear all that advice.
Just bringing up the point of just like, if you don't have a community of people in your immediate surroundings that do what you do, especially like video, photo, content creation, it's important to seek it out. I think the internet obviously is the most powerful tool that we have to human existence, and groups like Black with No Cream, or just reaching out to different videographers, photographers on Instagram just to connect and like learn from them, I think is like so important. I remember there was one episode of Black with No Cream when they were talking about, it was like one of their podcasts, like I forgot, the morning roast that they have, and it was like Ben and Dave talking about like budgeting and just like how to like know where to spend your money or where to save money, or if like you feel like you're going to lose money on a gig but it's going to allow you to connect with so and so, like that's an investment, to look at it, frame it in that way. And it's funny, like I felt like we learned that things like that through just like going about our business. But for me specifically, like I remember sending that episode to my mom, just be like, hey, like just listen to this, because then you'll understand like what I'm going through and like what I'm trying to do.
Right.
And really, I think that was the first time where like she was really able to just like be like, oh wow, like this, like my son isn't an idiot and he's just like doing this on his own, but there's actually people who like view things the same way that he does. And I was like, so yeah, I think Black with No Cream, if you haven't seen it, like huge recommendation. Just like the podcast, YouTube channel, Facebook group, like go join it all, because it's like,
oh my God,
such a saving grace, I would say.
If I discovered that group, or I don't know if it existed before everything, when I just left college, it would have been like a godsend. But even now I'm still like learning so much from it, and it is so important to like find those resources and utilize them, especially now with the internet. Like there's just endless possibilities and opportunities lying within those groups. So
you're listening to Black with No Cream, you're out here, you're starting to create again, you're kind of back in like that OG groove of like when you were a child, just like creating to like create. So what comes from that?
Ben would interview a lot of like concert photographers and videographers, and I was like super into that. I was super into shooting shows. Like that was a world I had not really even thought of, but really wanted to break into. And so I would like go online, I would look at like concerts this week in New York City, I'd find like the headliner, and then I'd find like the opener or like a DJ, and then I would go to their Instagram and try and find their management, and then DM their management, just be like, hey, like I'll like come shoot for free. Once again, like trying to build up the portfolio. And so I ended up getting one show, which was like a concert series in Central Park, and the DJ who's DJing the whole thing, they were like, yeah, like come along. And that was my first time getting like a pass and like being able to go into the pit and stuff like that. And I was just like, this is so cool. I was so excited about that. And that like goes to show just to like reach out. Like I sent a bunch of them, but like once you just get one, then, you know, the ball starts to roll. And so taking those tips from Black with No Cream was super important, like reaching out to people, and it's like all about like the value that you bring to them. So like always lead with that. And then Black with No Cream hosted 3 contests with Dutch Bros, which is a coffee company based, I think they're the largest privately owned coffee company, which is like a huge brand. And so I was chilling at home. I was creating. I was like, I'm 100% investing all of my energy into this. So I knew that like it was an important opportunity to not only for like the group, but also to get your name in front of a brand. And, you know, it's important to like showcase your work no matter what, even if you didn't win or whatnot. And so I entered all 3. And then the last one was, the prize was to be flown out to Vegas to shoot Life is Beautiful music festival for Dutch Bros. And I was like, this is unheard of. This opportunity is unheard of. There's no way this is a real thing. And so I put all my like energy into this one video. I really tried to make something that was really cool and stand out, and regardless of anything, I was just like really excited to be creating for like a company like Dutch Bros. And so I ended up getting the DM from Gavin, who works at Dutch Bros, and he was like, yo, like you won. And I was like what? It was crazy. I was just like in shock. I'd never thought I would have an opportunity like that for number of years, if ever. So I was like super excited about that.
Amazing. Yeah. Well, I think that's a very natural segue and transition into the second half of this interview, because you brought 5 amazing pieces of content that you created just throughout your career leading up to this point that, you know, we're going to go over and hear a little insight as to how you went about creating those. But lastly, before we move on, you know, like I would love to learn just about like what your future goals are. Obviously, we're in a weird time in the world, but you know, we're still very much in the thick of just like creating at home and just creating content. So like, what does, you know, the future have in store for Quinn, or what are some things that you're looking to accomplish?
I have a few like smaller goals and points that I definitely want to reach, but overall, I think my goal has always been to create the best stuff that I can physically create and just kind of be the best creator that I can. I just have like so much fun in the process of everything, and I'm always trying to learn more. Like recently I've been shooting products, which is super cool, and like that's a whole world that I'm exploring, and I'm like learning Photoshop more now. So whatever I can do to just like elevate myself and just kind of be in competition with myself is always like the future goal. I would love to like go on tour one day. That's definitely a goal. I'd love to like travel for film and have someone, you know, hire me to like shoot a travel video. Like that's definitely a little goal. Not anytime soon because of the pandemic, but right before the pandemic. I'm just trying to collaborate with new creators for sure and be inspired and just make the best possible content that I can for different brands and keep challenging myself.
All right, so we're back, and Quinn has brought 5 amazing videos that she's going to be sharing with us. Starting off with the first one, we have DJ Funkmaster Flex.
This is where it all happens. This is like my place. do something. This room was nothing before. Everything from my childhood. I got the race set happening. I got my classic boombox. Got the video game with the centipede and the asteroids. I got the little section with the sneakers and the hats. I got all my bicycles, not all of them, I got a few more. I keep a small section of my emergency vinyl. I got the air hockey cracking. A few plaques, a few pieces. A controller, I got my turntables. This is the most important room in the house. And this Saturday, 9 p.m., I go live on IG for the first time. And then every Thursday, 9 p.m., live on IG. Things you've never heard, we ain't playing.
This is super recent, connecting with funk, actually through Ben Haggerty, who referred me to him, which is really cool. I was like, this is sick. This is like my first time really like working personally with an artist, celebrity, DJ like funk. And he basically wanted to make a promo video for his Instagram live DJ set and wanted to show off like his playroom that he just renovated during COVID. And so the idea was to have him kind of spew off everything that he was talking, like everything he did to the room, what it means to him, things like that. And then we would overlay all these different scenes of the space. And I didn't want it to make it just like a basic, MTV Crib sort of smooth video. I wanted it to match his energy. So I was trying transitions, a lot of speed ramping, a lot of up close. I'd use like the 360 cam. I incorporated like some stop motion of like his shoes piling up. So I was always trying to take it to that next level to make it as exciting as like his personality.
Yeah, definitely. And I love that stop motion bit of it. Hopefully it comes up here soon. But here it is. How long did that take just to film? Was this like after you had finished everything with him and it's like, oh, let me just try this last thing? Or was it kind of like in the middle of it? How did that go?
Yeah, so that was at the end of everything. I knew it would take a second, so I saved it for last. And I would just remove every shoot, take a photo, remove the next shoot, take a photo, and then I reversed it so it would fill up. But yeah, that took like 20 minutes. Stop motion, as I said before, is definitely like a process. And then I also did another one, I don't know if it's in this version, but like with the radio, what's it called, vinyl stacking up too as a stop motion. So I'm always trying to just like add new visual elements to whatever I'm working on.
Yeah, so you mentioned that this was like the first time you were working with kind of like an artist celebrity, just like so up close and personal. So how did that differ in your preparation from like any of your other shoots?
I mean, I don't think it does that much. For me, it's, it's like it's a client and I just want to like make the best content for him. And I was just excited to work with him because he, is like, seems like a fun guy and he's great. So it was just cool to see his space and like what he envisions for his video and so that it was just a cool experience.
Yeah, definitely. Did you chat with him after you sent him the video? Did you get his reaction, or was that through a third party?
We're like all in a text group. I think he was just like, "This is fire," or something, like one of those like lines, and I was like,
yeah,
perfect.
Sick.
That's all I needed.
That's all you need sometimes. Yeah, just fire some flame emojis and you're good to go.
Right. That's
awesome.
all I need.
Yeah, awesome. Well, you killed this. All right, so let's move on to the second piece of content here.
Yeah, so this is definitely an homage to my childhood stop motion creation. I'm always like looking at different objects and how I can manipulate them, and with stop motion you have so much freedom to like play on visual effects. And so I saw like my camera, I was just like looking at all my camera gear, and for a while I wanted to do something with my equipment because I also just like love gear. And I noticed that like you can like split the lens, and then I saw like I had these filters, and I was like, what if I chop up my camera gear and make it a stop motion, and you get this like very cool smooth visual effect. And yeah, this was a lot of fun. I had an overhead rig, and I had a little remote shutter, and so I just go frame by frame, and put on a timer and shot it all by myself. And yeah, it probably takes like an hour or so of shooting. So it's a little time consuming, but the result's really cool.
Something that I always try to stress just with anyone that watches my videos is just like the importance of just creating your own content. And it's something you alluded to earlier on as well. And yeah, just like why do you think it's important just to create your own content, just practice different things just for yourself?
Yeah, well, I think on a personal level, it helps you grow as a creator. And I always try and keep learning, because whenever a job comes up, I want to make sure I'm like the best prepared I can be with my skill set. So it's important to like experiment, get it wrong, get it right. And something like this is just fun to make. And if you like love creating, you'll just like love to make something that you want to make. And there's been so many times where I've posted something like this that's not for anyone, it's just for fun. And like someone reaches out to me, it's like, oh, like we love this, can you make this like for us? And then that will lead into a job.
Yes, 100%. And I'm so glad you said that, because yeah, it's so, especially with like Instagram, social media, like you just never know who's watching, you know what I mean? And it just takes that one little video that you might think is dumb or like not good that could change your career, because you don't know who saw it, you know what I mean? This is just like a very consistent theme and style throughout all your videos that I just like love about your work.
Thank you.
Yeah, moving on to video number 3. I love seeing behind the scenes, just because it's so crazy to see all the amount of work that goes into it. I think it's like,
me too.
It's almost like, I think I enjoy it a little bit more than the final product, just because like the final product is always just so clean, which is great. But it's like, damn, this is what this person went through just to make all this. But yeah, walk me through just like this project and just everything that you had to do to make it.
They were looking for content for a dollar bill campaign they were doing. And they pretty much gave me no limitations. They just said whatever, you can make, and you can incorporate the dollar or not. And what I love about this is I think it translates with every creator, because it is such a simple setup. And I was like pretty shocked that the end result, you can like really manipulate it and make it look like a kind of like a CGI ad. But it's just a green screen and I think 3 lights. And so my idea was to throw all this stuff around, get like a lot of movement, and then layer them, piece everything together, and make something that looks like super professional-ish.
What was the hardest part about this video that took you the longest, or was the most challenging? It
was getting the green screen lit properly. When I started shooting products, I really didn't realize how important lighting is. And I had done this whole shoot one time before, and it was so poorly lit. I didn't really know how to light green screen properly until this video. So once I got the green screen lit properly, the keying definitely took the longest as well. And then like just manipulating everything to make it fill out the frame a bit more.
Came out beautifully though. Love it.
Thank you.
It's just a lot of complimenting going on here. This is a very just like
feeds my ego. There we go.
Exactly. Yeah, we all need it from time to time. We all need that reminder of how good we are.
Yeah, so this was crazy. I never thought I would be able to shoot something like this, especially with such huge artists. Like there's Post and Billie Eilish and Chance the Rapper, which was just amazing to be able to shoot them. But Dutch Bros was basically like, go run wild, like whatever you want to make, like no limitations, like do your thing, like have fun. And for me, I was like, I need to make this the best piece of content that I can. So I was just on my own. I was out shooting. I would try and get every single angle. I never shot such a large event. There were like 3 stages. So I was trying to cover everything, and most importantly, cover Dutch Bros, because, you know, I was ultimately there creating a promo video for them. So I was getting, you know, shots of the drinks, of people like having fun with the drinks, and just trying to incorporate everything into one video to like really capture the feel of the festival.
Nice. So how'd you, the prep for this, like what was your gear set up? Like, you mentioned that this was like the first big like festival that you were kind of shooting and didn't really know like what to expect. So like, how'd you prep for this, just mentally, equipment wise, everything?
Oh God. Yeah, I was really flying blind. We also didn't know like what I could and couldn't bring. But before the festival, I pretty much drained my whole bank account and bought like 2 lenses. Like I got a new laptop, you know, for the sake of like editing quickly. And I just went in, I had like one little backpack with my camera, my 3 lenses. I had a 360 cam, and that was it. And so I would just kind of run around with my camera and just shoot whatever I could. I did like hyperlapses, which I really didn't know how to do that well at the time. And just like was trying to get all the activations and things like that. But it was a lot of winging it, for sure.
What I think you saying that you were like, I'm just gonna go gung ho on this, like empty my bank account, like that's a lot of confidence in yourself. And deservedly so. Like obviously all your work has proven that it's like good, and you know you're gonna be able to deliver. But like where did that stem from, where it's like, you know what, I just need to go all out for this?
The fact that it was such a big opportunity for me, not only like event wise, but working with Dutch Bros. I don't think you need like equipment to make great content. Like it would have been fine if I just had my one camera and lens, but I really, for this specifically, I wanted to have all the equipment to match the type of content I wanted to create. And like we didn't know if I'd be able to like get up close or things like that, so I like got a zoom lens and like wide to, you know, see the whole space and things like that. So for me, I just didn't want to like get there and be like, oh, feel like limited. That was the whole mindset behind it.
I remember seeing this video too on like Black with No Cream, and I think this was the first introduction to your work, and then when we met through Happy Monday, then I put 2 and 2 together. I was like, oh, that's her. But yeah, no, I remember seeing this video when it came out, and I was like, yeah, this is fire, it's lit. This is the actual Black with No Cream Dutch Bros contest submission that like allowed you to go to Life is Beautiful. So yeah, tell me just about the concept behind it, because just the colors and the lights are beautiful.
The prompt was to create a video with this travel mug, which is like a Galaxy travel mug, with colors and lights, which is pretty vague, and it's like difficult to think of what to do, because it's like just a stagnant mug, and how do you incorporate all these different elements. And so as I was brainstorming, I was thinking about light photography, long exposure light photography, which I think was kind of big back when like Tumblr was around and people would like draw their like names with lights. And so I was like, what if I take that element and turn it into stop motion and like create these different scenes with these lights? And the mug is sort of like a spaceship kind of futuristic feel. So I went on Amazon, I bought like a light wand, and for like that whole week it was just trial and error, like figuring out what looks good, what works, because this is like, it's super difficult to shoot light photography. And I would basically be in my backyard like at like 2 a.m. with a light wand, and I would just be sitting there drawing in midair, and like if my neighbors saw me, they probably thought I was a little bit insane. But I like you draw one frame and you don't even know where you just drew, so I would have to like draw each frame out by hand, and it was definitely like the most difficult, intensive like shooting process probably to this day that I've done, which is kind of crazy.
It's yeah. I mean, the final product was great, and we're seeing some behind the scenes of just the shoot right now. But what was any of the final edit like done in post, or everything was done like in camera with this like wand?
It was all done in camera. The only thing that was in post was just like enhancing the photos, and sometimes you'd see like my body in the background, so I just like blacked that out. But all the lights were all like hand drawn. Insane.
I mean, I aspire to have this level of creativity one day. I don't know if I'll ever get there, but you know,
you do.
What could only hope. Thank you, Quinn, so much for sharing just your knowledge, your amazing work that I'm sure people can learn from, and hopefully just take something away from it. Yeah, even if it's one thing. But I really appreciate your time and just everything that we've gone over in the last hour. You know, it's been an hour. It's kind of crazy.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me. I appreciate you even wanting to have me on.
No, of course. And last thing before we let you go, if you can just look into the camera that you have set up at your house, and if you just let the people know how they can find you, if they want to give you some work, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, so you can hit me up on Instagram. It is @Quinn_films. That's probably the best way. My website's qmurphy.com. And yeah, that's it.
Thank you so much, Quinn. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Cool. We'll see you guys next week. Woo! Thank you.
Nice.